Hi, everyone. Welcome to the January Mama's Lunch Bunch. I am re-recording this because we had some user error in the original meeting, and so we weren't able to share the PowerPoint. So I'm going to re-record and send it out to folks so that we are including the PowerPoint presentation. So I'm going to go ahead and get that up and going. Okay. All right, so this month we are going to be chatting about the legislative session. Our legislative session started last Wednesday on January 8th. So we are just over a week into the session, and so it's a timely opportunity for us to be talking about the things that we can expect at the legislature. So wanted to give folks the basics of what happens at the state legislature, and how you can plug in. So our agenda today is we will, again, talk about the basics of what the legislative session is about, how a bill becomes a law, go through the process of that, how you can find your state legislator, and then talk about how Mountain Mamas engages in this work. This is a lovely picture of our state capitol. All right, so as I mentioned, last week was the start of session. So it goes 4 months, January 8th, and they conclude on May 7th. The state legislature has a few things that they are required to do. So they determine the state budget. That's all the money that comes in from taxes, from individuals, from businesses, and they determine how that money is going to be spent. Some of that is based on current law and current mandates for funding, and with whatever money is left over after that, they can create new laws to spend the leftover money. So and then they are tasked with passing laws that govern our state. These can be new or revised policies. Often they are revising old policies, and sometimes creating brand new ones based on the needs of the state. They also might pass resolutions which are non-binding, but might make a statement about how the legislature feels about some things, or maybe it's a statement about something happening in the world or in the country or the state, that they want to make a statement about. I know that for a long time, and I'm not sure if they still do this, but every year they would pass something into the awareness of fair pay and equal pay, that acknowledged women made less than men, make less than men. So that's just an example of something that isn't binding to the state, but just something that the legislature passes often. We have a citizen legislature, which means that they are part-time. They meet 4 months out of the year. They do meet every year, but most of our legislators have jobs outside of the Capitol. So when they are not in session, they might be working as an attorney or working for a nonprofit, working in real estate, lots of things they might be involved in, but they're sort of, it allows them to be more accessible, and it allows running for office to be more accessible for everyday citizens. We have 100 members in our state legislature. There's 65 members in the House of Representatives, and they are elected every 2 years. And we have 35 senators that are elected every 4 years, and those races are staggered. Those elections are staggered, so not all senators are up at the same time, but all House of Representatives up at the same time. So let's chat a little bit about how a bill becomes a law. We have this handy little chart here. So a bill will be will be introduced rather in either the House or the Senate. It starts in one chamber, and it goes all the way through the process before it moves to the other chamber. Federally, bills start in both chambers. Identical legislation starts in both chambers, and it kind of works its way through the process. But we have a much more simplified process here in the state. So we have time to do the whole committee process and everything before it goes to the next chamber. So a bill gets introduced in the House or the Senate and is assigned to a relevant committee that deals with the issue that bill is trying to address. So if it's an education bill, it'll go to an education committee, the education committee. If it's about business or workers, it might go to business and labor. If it's environmental, it'll go to energy and environment. So, different, and we'll talk a little bit about committees later, but so they'll go to the committee where the members that serve on that committee might have some level of expertise in that area, or just a more general interest in it, and then they can specialize through the session on those issues. If a bill costs money, it will cost the state extra money by passing, then that bill will have to also go through appropriations. So it'll go through the initial committee, and if it passes, then it will go to the appropriations committee, where they determine how the funds outside of general funds, which is the general funds go to laws that are already on the books that must be funded. Then the appropriations committee determines how the leftover money gets divvied up. And in both of these committees, bills can be amended, changed, and but in appropriations, it can only be dealing with the fiscal note or the amount of money that the bill will cost. So they might make changes to the bill to lower the fiscal note, but they can't make changes outside of that. Also in the committee hearing, the bill sponsor will, which is the legislator running the bill, will testify in front of the committee. They will have folks come in and testify, maybe expert witnesses or citizens that care about the bill, which is where we can come in and testify on bills that we either support or oppose. And then, of course, there will be opposition to those bills as well, and they will testify. The committee will, deliberate and vote, deal with any amendments, and then once a final vote is taken and it passes, then it goes to the full floor of either the House or the Senate. And once it's on the full floor, then it has 2 votes. It goes through second reading, where you can also amend the bill, and then it goes through third reading before it gets sent to the opposite chamber, where it goes through the exact same process as it did in the first chamber. If there are amendments that happen in the second chamber, then it has to go back to the original chamber for concurrence. And if the original chamber disagrees, it can go back and forth a little bit, but generally speaking, those things are worked out ahead of votes. It often doesn't go back and forth quite so many times. Usually it might go back to the original chamber and then again, but not too much. We typically run out of time before that happens. And then it's off to the governor's desk for his signature or veto. So that's really the basic process for how a bill becomes a law. at the state legislature. So I wanted to chat a little bit about our budget this year. And I'm sure if you've been reading the news, you know that we are facing a significant deficit this year. There's a couple of numbers being floated, somewhere between 700 million and $1 billion. But the number that I'm seeing most recently is around 750 million. And there are several factors that are contributing to that. So I thought it was important to talk about this a little bit, so that we are going into this with the understanding that not a lot of new legislation is going to get passed this year, and really more what we're going to be mostly concerned about are cuts to programs that we care about, that benefit folks. For example, funding for electric school buses through a grant program that the state had was cut as part of the 750 million that they have to take out of the budget. So there are going to be real world implications and painful cuts, unfortunately, that the state is going to have to make. So let's talk about why that is, so you understand what's going on. So the first thing is the Taxpayer Bill of Rights. Colorado has this in statute, or in our Constitution rather, and that means that we have a cap on how much money the state can spend that it brings in. So there's a calculation of population times inflation that number equals the Tabor cap. And when one of those things fluctuates, then it can either increase the cap or decrease the cap. This year, and then anything over that cap must be given back to taxpayers, and that's the Tabor refund. We haven't gotten one in a while because there's been some fixes that have allowed the state to keep that money, but that it may be ending. So cooling inflation has reduced the Tabor cap this year. And so that means the state has a lower amount of money that it's able to spend, and the rest of that money will be returned to the taxpayers. And just a note that Tabor is very bad for Colorado. It's very bad for our state to be able to make, I think taxpayers feel like this is good because it keeps government in check, and they appreciate a refund. However, the refunds are generally quite small, and it prevents the state from being able to plan for things appropriately, and also in years like this where it creates a lowering of the cap, then they have to cut programs that benefit folks, and cut it, that which means potentially cutting progress on things like climate change and other problems. It impacts school funding. So there's lots of folks that are negatively impacted by Tabor. Another factor that is coming into play this year is that the legislature increased K through 12 funding last year. They adjusted some of the formulas that basically require the state to put more into funding of schools. And so that's going to impact the state budget. There was also a special session over the summer this last year where the state where the legislature voted to cut property taxes. And property taxes help offset the amount of money that the state pays to school districts. So that means that the state will have to put more money in to help offset those property tax cuts. Across the country, Medicaid costs are increasing because there are more baby boomers retiring and applying for Medicaid. And so and other factors, of course, just increasing healthcare costs generally, that's hitting the state quite hard. There were also federal funds from the pandemic relief that are expiring this year, and so the state no longer has that funding to rely on. So those are really the major issues the major factors that are adding to this deficit. All right, so let's turn to how you can find out who your state representative is. And I want to walk you through the website a little bit to show you some of the cool things that we have on our state ledge site. So if you don't know who your legislator is, you can do really just a quick Google search to find this website, but it's ledge.colorado.gov. It's our Colorado General Assembly site. But if you just search Colorado State Legislature, this site will come up quickly. And if you are looking for your legislator, there's a little tab up here that says Find My Legislator, and that will bring you to this page. And you just type in your address and it will come up. And I can actually type in my zip code and it will come up. Not all zip codes work so neatly. Some are split between districts. So I would suggest putting your full address in to make sure you get the right one. But these are my representatives. So I have Senator Lindsay Doherty and Representative Lisa Foray. Lisa's new this year, so that's why she doesn't have a picture. And some of this, they're still like getting things uploaded and updated on the site. So let's take a look at Lindsay. So you can see that their email is listed here, and then you can have a link to their webpage. So if I click on Lindsay's webpage, or Senator Doherty, as we call her, you get some information about this senator. So sometimes they have an occupation listed. Her party is Democrat. It shows you which committees she sits on, and this is really important to get a sense of who your legislator is and what issues they care about, and what expertise they have. So Senator Doherty is an attorney, so that's maybe one of the reasons she sits on judiciary, and she sits on health and human services. So these are issues that are important to her that she's going to know a lot about. We don't necessarily deal with these committees in our work, but she's obviously still important to build a relationship with. So Senate district, and then up here we have her mailing address, including her office number, 346. So if you were at the Capitol and you wanted to stop in and talk with her aide or see if she was there, you have her room number, you have her direct phone number to her office, and then you can email directly from here as well. And then here you can see, if you scroll down, you can see all of the bills and resolutions that she is sponsoring. Right now, obviously, we're in the very early stages of session, so there's not a lot here, but you can look back through previous sessions and see what bills she supported. So and you can also see if she was the prime sponsor or a co-sponsor of a bill. And co-sponsor just means that they're not a leader on the bill. They're not really, working on amendments and counting votes, but they are saying that they're signing on to say that they are publicly supporting this bill. So that's how you find your legislator, and you can communicate directly with them through the site. And then there's also, I wanted to point out, there's lots of different interesting things here. You can see the session schedule. You can look through a list of bills and search for bills. You can see which laws are already on the books. You can look at all of the state legislators, and you can look at committees, ballot initiatives, budget information, audits, publications, and then agencies that are tied to support the state legislature. Committees, I wanted to click on and show you this because we do deal with a lot of committee work. So you have all of the House committees listed at the top, and then you scroll down and see the Senate committees. And then there's some year-round committees that work, like the Joint Budget Committee. They have a ton of work on their plate to work on the budget, and so they meet all year round. There's interim committees. They meet between May and January. Or usually it's wrapped up before January, but or even before December. But if there was any interim committees that met, you can see, or that meet on a regular basis, you can see what those look like here. So I encourage folks to just kind of poke around and see what you can learn. And just to show you an example, in the House, we often are working, our bills are often assigned to energy and environment. For obvious reasons. And you can see who sits on that committee. You can see who is the chair of the committee. That's Representative Valdez, who's the vice chair, Representative Velasco. You can look to see, who's a Republican, who's a Democrat. The Democrats, I failed to mention this in the beginning, but the Democrats have a majority in both chambers. So they are going to be controlling these committees. That's not a guarantee of anything, just to know that, we will be working more with the Democrats because they have control. But we, of course, are a nonpartisan organization, and so we'll be working, with any legislator that supports our issues. But the leadership is who they are. So you can see who the committee is. You can click on their pages from here to get more information about them and learn how to reach out to them. You can see their upcoming schedule and what bills they'll be working on. So this is their schedule from today. These are the things that they were chatting about at their committee hearing, which actually might still be going on. And then you can also listen to committee from here on this little committee audio. So if you wanted to hear what does a committee hearing sound like, you can click on this and listen in. You can also listen in on the House floor or the Senate floor from your house. So and then there's a watch and listen button as well. So they really do have a pretty good system in place for folks to participate remotely, which of course helps folks that are not in the Denver metro area, but even those of us that have small kids or just, aren't able to get down to the Capitol for whatever reason because we work. There are good practices in place that we're lucky to have here in Colorado. All right, so let's chat about how Mountain Mamas engages in this work. So the first thing to mention is our brand new legislative team that's actually launching our first meeting next week. We have, I think, 12 members this year, and it's there's still room for folks to join if you're interested, but this team is going to be meeting on a regular basis. We're going to be talking about what bills there are in the Capitol that are running, which ones does Mountain Mamas want to prioritize this year, how are we going to make sure that the mama voice is heard at the Capitol. We'll be testifying in committee. We'll be holding an event down there at some point, hopefully next month, where we may do a press conference or something to highlight, what's important to moms and our kids in relation to clean air and reducing energy costs. So that's happening. We also, so we will determine our priority bills, like I said, through the legislative team. And that's usually 2 to 4 bills, probably closer to 4. But those are ones that we are really committed to. And then there will be other bills as well that, we might testify on or send an action alert out to our members on. So we're not really limited to just, those pieces of legislation. But there's so much that we could work on. So we really just need to make sure we're using our time wisely. As I mentioned, we'll be testifying in committees. in committee hearings. So if you're interested in that, we would love to have you help us with that. This, as I mentioned, can be done online. Oh, I might not have mentioned that, but this can be done online. You can testify remotely. I do it most of the time because it's tough for me as a mom of young kids to get down to the Capitol. And often, these the committee hearings can go on for a long time. The agenda gets shifted around at the last minute. Bills might, that are coming before it might take, a couple of hours to get through. So sometimes it's just nice to have that option to be online, and we can let you know, when the bill is up, when we think you're about to get called up, so that you don't have to sit for hours at a committee hearing online even. And it can be more accessible for folks that don't have a ton of time to testify. And the testimony is like 2 to 3 minutes tops. So it's really quick, easy in and out. You don't have to be an expert. Bill, it's really just, why do you care about this issue, and why do you think that the legislature should vote for it or against it? We also hold a lobby day every year. Typically, this is late March, early April. It's a really fun event. You do not have to have any lobbying experience. You don't have to have even stepped foot in the Capitol before to come. In fact, most folks that come are new, and it's a really cool day at the Capitol. We spend the morning. We usually meet around eight in the morning, do a quick training about the bills. We split up into groups, and we go up to the lobby to talk to our legislators. So you get to talk to your own legislator. You might talk to other legislators, but it's a really fun and impactful day. And so more to come on that, but I really encourage folks to think about that if you haven't been. We'll also be asking folks to write emails and make phone calls to legislators about bills to make sure that they're hearing from folks and providing support. We'll also be asking folks to write letters to the editor. Somebody asked a question at our meeting about whether letters to the editor are still an effective strategy, since people aren't necessarily reading traditional news anymore. But we still have found that lawmakers are paying attention to these local news sources. So because that's who we're trying to get to generally with a letter to the editor, we're trying to show them that people care about these issues, and here's why. It's still an effective strategy. So we can help you write those, or give you talking points to help you write them. Again, you don't have to be an expert on the bill. It's really just about the issue and why you care about it. We'll be participating in rallies and press conferences. Maybe there will be hours, maybe there will be coalitions that we sit on that will hold these to raise awareness about our issues, but we may ask you to join those. And friends and kids are always welcome at all of our events. At our lobby day, for example, we always offer to provide childcare. We've had lots of kids come to lobby day, and often parents just want to bring them up with them to the lobby, and it's fantastic. Kids are, generally, I don't know if they're interested, but they've participated, and it's fun for the legislators. They like to come out and talk to kids, and so babies, toddlers, older kids, bring them. We encourage it, and we will provide childcare if you'd prefer. And then these meetings, Mama's Lunch Bunch, we'll be doing issue briefings. We're going to do a lobby training to make sure that folks feel comfortable to plug in and participate. And so stay tuned for that as we get further into this session. So that is, kind of the long and short of it. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me, or you can always text me as well. My contact information will be in the email. So a couple of upcoming events. As I mentioned, our first legislative team is next Wednesday, January 22nd at 7:30 p.m. We will be meeting on Wednesdays at 7:30 p.m. That's the time that worked for all of our folks So if that's interesting, sounds interesting to you, let us know. Let me know. We are also holding our second grief circle with Women of the Water on February 4th at 6 o'clock. We held one in the fall, and it was really a great event to just take some time to reflect on some of the losses that we're experiencing. This may be of particular interest with the LA fires, to just come together and talk about things that we are afraid of, that we are grieving, maybe for our children and our children's future. So anyway, a good opportunity to kind of sit and reflect and be with other women that are feeling really similar ways that you are. We are also holding a training in Jeffco for our school sustainability campaign in Jefferson County. So if you're a Jeffco parent, or if you have a student that is interested in getting involved in climate work at the district level, we are holding a training February 5th from 6 to 4. Sorry, from 6 to 8 p.m. I was looking at the date above. And we're going to be getting information out about that pretty soon. And then the last thing is next month's meeting is February 12th at noon. So hopefully you can continue to join us or watch the recordings later. And with that, we'll wrap things up. Again, let me know if you have any questions over email or text. Always happy to answer those. And I hope to see you at next month's meeting. Thanks so much.